I use Shipt same-day delivery to stay connected with my sister during the holidays. She lives across the country. Shipt has tons of stores to order from. Groceries from Albertsons, crafts from Michael's, even pet supplies from PetSmart. The list goes on. So when we have long-distance movie nights, I turn to Shipt to get face masks, snacks, and everything else we need delivered to her and to me same day. Download the app or visit Shipt.com. That's SHIPT.com.
This episode is brought to you by Netflix. Jay Kelly, the new film from Academy Award nominee Noah Baumbach. George Clooney stars as an actor confronting his past and present on a journey of self-discovery, alongside Adam Sandler as his devoted manager. Critics are calling it a declaration of love to the chaotic art of filmmaking, with the Wall Street Journal praising it as a transcendent comedy drama. Watch Jay Kelly December 5th, only on Netflix.
Hello, family. I'm Janaya Future Khan, and this is Dark Woke. Just before we hit it, I want to say thank you to all the listeners out there, and a special shout out to the supporters who make this show possible. It truly means the world to me. If you'd like to become a member, our Patreon is linked in the episode right up below. Boy, am I excited to talk to you. I do need to tell you, I just threw some lip gloss or like balm something on my lips. And do you want to know what it felt like? It felt like if I had taken Vaseline and just dumped it over a pile of ash. That's how dry my lips were. Like, truly, I might have sneezed and spontaneously combusted. There's a trail that you can follow if you go outside in front of my house. That's how dry my lips were. But we have a loaded episode. I'm going to be talking all about Piers Morgan. I guess he took a trip across the pond, our Piers Morgan. Piers is in so many ways considered the Tucker Carlson of the UK. So what happens when you have Piers Morgan on Tucker Carlson's show? Two people that are considered hyper-conservative, even white nationalists, but it turns out that their interpretations of that are very different, especially when one is playing on the other person's turf. So we're going to unpack, challenge, and absolutely make fun of Piers Morgan on Tucker Carlson's show. There's actually a lot of gems. Then Piers Morgan was on Jubilee on that stupid Surrounded series, right? Piers Morgan debates 20 woke liberals. This is going to be a good episode, okay? But before we jump in, I want to talk to you about something. I'm going to say a weird, I guess, like anecdote, but it's going to relate to so much. Are you ready? Okay. I've been really struggling with dark woke. I've been struggling in general. I think we're all struggling. It's a weird time to be alive. You all know there's shit going on with the FBI. Can't be talking about right now, where they're trying to target activists and a lot of people in my family. It is still ongoing. You know, my mom is still kicking. She's going to go when she's ready to, but obviously that causes stress. I can't go home because of political conditions. So there's good reasons to be stressed out. So what's dark woke got to do with it? I'm going to tell you. And this is for anyone who's struggling artistically or creatively, which is exactly what should be happening under fascism, okay? I once had a really bad cough. Coughs are usual. I've had asthma for a while. I get a lung infection here and there, but there was one cough that would not go away. So here I am, got this one cough that won't go away, and I go to a doctor, and I say, I've had this cough, got asthma, it's not going away. And he goes, great, take this inhaler and stop coughing. I said, sure. Go home. The inhaler's great. My airways are opened up. But something's happening. I'm still coughing. I've still got this cough. So a couple more weeks go by. And when I say a couple, I'm maybe it was a little bit longer than a couple. I'm not a let's go to the doctor kind of guy. But I had this cough for maybe an additional 3 to 4 weeks. I go back. Right? The inhaler's now done. I've been using it for months. I say, hey, you were right. My airways are opened up, but I still got this cough. And he goes, yeah, you need to stop coughing. I said, yeah, I do need to stop coughing. How do I stop coughing? I want to stop coughing. Give me the medicine that's going to, and he goes, no, you need to stop coughing. And I said, yes, Dr. Man, we're on the same page. What he meant was I had to force myself to stop coughing. He broke it down. Coughing was only useful, right, when my body was trying to expel something from it. That's what coughing does. That's why we have that motion, right? You all know we don't got an exoskeleton. We're not designed well. We eat, drink, and breathe all through one hole. That's not normal from an evolutionary standpoint in terms of like maximum efficiency, but that's what we've got. So he says to me, when you're not expelling things, you have to forcibly stop yourself from coughing because you are not coughing because you need to. You are coughing because of muscle memory. You're coughing because you've damaged up your airways, right? And now it's a knee-jerk reaction to cough, but you don't actually need to. So the only way to stop is to force yourself to stop. And so for the next couple of days, every time I had the urge to cough, I went, stop myself from doing it. And guess what? The cough went away. My point is, sometimes we have a set of practices or something that we're obsessing over. And you do it so much that it becomes muscle memory to do it. And sometimes, just like trauma, you're reacting and acting out of time because of it. I had a friend break up a while ago. And it was one of those relationships. And y'all know, we learn things about people we should have never learn thanks to the movement, right? And that's okay. They're not natural conditions. And so people are going to respond to things in ways that maybe you didn't anticipate or see coming, the way that happened to me. But what I learned, right, was this friend breakup, this betrayal took me about 6 months to unpack. Every day, I talked about it for 6 months, every day. And then one day I was like, oh, I don't need to talk about it anymore. I gave permission to myself because by the end of the 6 months, I wasn't working through anything anymore. It just was the thing that my brain was most conditioned to do. And when it stopped feeling good, because I was no longer making progress, I was no longer discovering or uncovering something that I needed to have closure, I was just picking at a wound. I was picking at, even worse, actually, I was picking at fully healed tissue, right? We have to be really, really careful, especially now, where our mind goes, where our attention is. There's so much out there. There's so much out there that is awful and negative and doomsday-esque. And I'll tell you something, a lot of it is true. There's also a lot of stuff out there that says the exact opposite, and that's true too. And where and what we give our time and attention to is something we have to be so mindful of. I'm somebody that likes to believe I'm so on top of my emotions, and I've been a fucking mess, and I realize that one of the things I've been struggling with about this show is that the frustrations and tensions and uncertainties that have shaped, I would say maybe 2 years around trying to figure out how to make this work, right? I still have those things, but it's working now. Like I'm in a different place, but I've really struggled because only today, literally, have I realized why I've had such a hard time getting online and making the show make sense and everything else. I finally have the capacity, but I was like, what's wrong with me? Every second I was like, what's wrong with me? Why do I feel this uncertain or this bad? Because I'm trying to solve for an emotional reality that is no longer my reality. And my brain was holding on to it because for 2 years it was my reality. I love Dark Woke, but I couldn't figure out for the better part of 2 years how to make it work. I had to do a lot of things to make it work. And I want to be clear, to make it work the way I wanted to, right? Certainly I could have gotten in bed with a platform, but I'm stubborn, right? Maybe that's a good way of saying it. Another good way of saying it is I have a vision. Whatever it is, it's ass and it's hard, but I committed to it. And I'm so game to see this through. I believe in this so much. I finally have someone whose skill sets are exactly what I need. That is such a pleasure to work with. Yes, Corey, we're talking about you. But that takes a long time. And you also need resources because you want to bring on people that you can actually pay well and work towards getting more. So I'm approaching this whole thing differently. Imagine my surprise when and I still had such negative emotions attached to it. So today I realized what the problem was. I'm still coughing. I just need to stop coughing. I'm trying to solve for problems that I've spent the better part of a year working to solve. And now my emotional reality is new. I can't have new emotions about this show because I'm not making space for it. I'm not trying things differently. So one of the things that we've been doing, and this is the last thing I'll say before we jump into this really cool thing. Y'all know I got to say that because I'm a yapper. I've been thinking of what is the best use of Dark Woke? Like, what does this show do that no other show can do, or that I believe needs doing more. Indulge my poor grammar. It's the thing that makes me fucking furious, but it's listening to these dickheads and breaking down what's actually happening and looking at debates. And we're going to do the top lines and stuff I mean, you already know it's a mishmash. There's going to be huge debates on this. There's going to be, you know, good takes. But what I want to commit to is the educational components of dark woke. I take a lot for granted. I think we all do with language and what we think people know. But these types of videos, these types of debate things, this is where the majority of people are being educated, and we need to live in that space. So I already know, like for the OGs and everything, I know if you listen to the Ta-Nehisi Coates Ezra Klein episode, also was fucking gangster. Go ahead and do that if you haven't. That's where we're best. We're best by saying, oh, this is what's actually being said, or this is what should have been said, or this is what this means, right? This is where we serve our best work. And that's what we're going to be committed to. So yes, you've heard this a million times. You've even heard it most recently. But I'll let the work show for itself. We're going to be refining till the end of the year. And then at the top of the year, right? I mean, we're going to fucking hit. But part of the reason why it's been such a challenge is because I am accounting for an emotional reality that no longer exists. And if there's anyone out there that gets that or struggling with that, you just got to stop coughing. It's that simple. You're going to want to, but now that you're aware of it, you're going to sense that your brain's going back to that place. Let go of what is not serving you. It used to, and that's okay. It just doesn't anymore. And so we got to let it go. With that, let's jump into this shit. I had to listen to this. And when I tell you, you want to talk about ashy, you want to talk about dry, I can't wait to get to the Tucker Piers takes. But I wanted to start out with the Jubilee one. There's some assertions that are made. Here's what gets me, okay? Occasionally, some of these hoes make sense. And I mean that for both of our sides, right? I'm really interested in the framing that happened here. So we're going to play some clips and unpack them. The best clips from Piers Morgan versus 20 woke liberals. And then we're hitting Piers Morgan, I guess like versus, but it's kind of like and or like, you know what I mean? Tucker Carlson, there's tensions there, but what we're gonna really hone in on is the juxtaposition. Is that the same Piers that we're talking to? And what happens when you're facing, right, in a more hysterical, absurdist way, the very things that you say you believe yourself? So let me pull up the first clip here with Corey. Again, it's Piers talking to largely 20 random people, but those 20 random people were chosen. There's 2 of them that I recognize. Only 1 made the cut. But why don't you hear for himself what Piers is debating just before we hit the first one? The premise is woke is anti-liberal and fascist. That's the case that Piers Morgan is trying to make versus 20 woke liberals.
Please, you seem way more comforting in person. Like you look taller on your show. Like, and you have this like very like.
I'm 6'1". What are you talking about?
I reject the idea of wokeness just because wokeness again is used as that insult that is elevated from different insults that have been thrown in the past.
Respectfully, I think wokeism has become one of the worst scourges in the world.
Yeah, because I think that there's been a successful campaign to basically attach
by the woke left.
No, it has been to attach all of these pejoratives to a idea of emancipation from silent groups. That's the idea.
There's idea that silent about
the idea left. That we should bring people to the table.
Any of you.
No,
ever. You never stop.
That's why I hear so much about cancel culture, about how everybody's getting canceled when they're millionaires.
What the fuck is this? This is like, did you hear how discordant and nonsensical this is? They've jumped. I don't even know. This is a mess, babies. This is a mess. This is not a debate. This isn't even an attack. Nobody's listening to what anybody is saying. No arguments are being made because they're not operating from a definition of what is. There's woke is anti-liberal and fascist. That's Piers Morgan's premise. So weak start, but let's keep going.
They just want to suck all the joy out of life. And I went, God, you're so right. That's exactly what they do.
What is
You
the
are
joy that you're
collectively-
sucking out?
You are
Stopping
collectively-
saying slurs
you
is
are-
sucking out the joy
No,
of life?
you are
You want to say slurs that bad?
I don't want to say slurs.
Well,
but
that's like...
but you are collectively the most joyless group of people to ever walk
I'm pretty
on God's
joyful.
earth.
I'm smiling.
my
I came in
advice-
cracking jokes.
my-
All right, let me pause
I-
this. Okay. So this is the thing that makes me laugh, right? You'll hear it with Tucker. And you've heard me say it on the show by myself. You have fucking everything. You won everything. And your entire outlook on life is one of negativity, right? All the country, America's in decline, Tucker Carlson says, right? It's America's in decline. Look at what's happening with immigration. It's everybody else's fault, right? All these people are coming in. This is why you're sad and upset, not because I'm selling you on the very thing, actually, that the loop that I was stuck in, right? Which is, I'm going to affirm that your feelings about this are correct, but I'm going to attach it to a political agenda. We're fucking sad in America because not one major government entity is investing in its population, right? So, like, let me be really clear. I want to say this explicitly. One of the arguments that Piers Morgan is using on Jubilee is to say that the left is joyless. That's part of the ways that woke is. I mean, I don't even know what that means because he's trying to argue that we're anti-liberal and fascist. But I will say this. To say that we're joyless is not entirely wrong. It's just not correct. The rights want everything in America, right? They're seeing through their agenda. Is anybody happier? Is anybody doing better? No, the economy is actually doing worse. We have fewer jobs than ever before, right? Is there a subset of people on the left who are fringy and annoying and constantly just ruining every fucking joke? Absolutely. To assume and to use it as a definition of woke, but to say that when we're living in the imagination of the people that many folks in the manosphere look up to, right? The billionaires, right? The nationalists. Is anybody fucking happier? No. You want to know why we're unhappy in America? It's not because of wokeism. It's not even because of nationalism. We're unhappy in America because there is such a concentration of wealth that no one can fucking function in society, even with 6 fucking jobs. You can't pay your rent. Grocery prices go up every year. It didn't stop with the pandemic. They skyrocketed post then, and they go up every year, even with. That would be true whether or not we had Trump's tariffs, because there are no checks and balances in any meaningful way. We don't have a Supreme Court that is at all balanced. We have no way to remove currently the fact that they're lifelong appointments. I think anybody would agree that that's bullshit. People were living until they were 35 when those lifelong appointments were made. We own nothing because we can't. There's no free market. So the logic of capitalism is fucking lost. There's, again, concentration of wealth, no redevelopment, no reinvestment. It's literally just being hoarded while the middle class and poor people barely are able to live, even though we put back in the most, which is why the logic of billionaires hire people, and that's why we need to keep them. No, the reason why they have power to do that is because competition has been eliminated because we don't have fucking antitrust laws. We have 5 companies that own 90% of the media ecosystem. You're telling us that we're unhappy and you're telling us why, but it's actually because of you. It's the system and the system that you protect. That's why people cannot experience joy. To say that it's because of a couple of fucking ass ninnies on the left or even the right is so stupid at this point. If in fact, if we believe that and we buy into that, you've lost the point. But let them continue.
I can get a beer with
My
you.
advice for all of you is
I think you need to relax a little
just
bit.
collectively a bit of. I know you love a bit of Zen. Zen, calm down, take a chill pill, right? See the funny side of life.
pretty chill.
Respect other people's opinions. Respect my right to have different opinions.
I think
to
that
you.
you've dressed this like nightmare scenario around you, and
It
then you
is a
start
nightmare.
cowering. No, then you start cowering at the own demons that you set up. It's funny that like are
Do you
the
see
wokies?
me cowering?
Are the
Am I
wokies
cowering in this room?
You're saying they're the
I've
joyless
come and sat in
people.
the middle of 20
They-
hardcore.
They are
woke
joy.
All right. We can move on. I'm like reading the captions. Do you get what I'm saying? So again, this thing, one of the core arguments in this, right, is that the left is joyless, but really it's talking about woke people, but that's synonymous with the left, okay? It's joyless. Now, what I will say is, I'm not interested in what an outsider has to say, but I'm an insider and we fucking are. like, fuck that take. It's based on anecdotal fallacies. You're going to be hearing that a lot because as we're want to do, we're talking about debate stuff. We are so fucking annoying on the left. You know that. We all know that. Can't make jokes, right? Can't do this, can't do that. At the same time, right? There's nothing wrong. I liked what Mason said, if you can't say slurs, you can't have fun. But that's too easy an argument. It would have been much more simple to just say that that's just based on anecdotal fallacies, right? I happen to know a lot of people. That's a moot point. What else you got? Move it on, move it forward. But it is a belief that people have, and I can say the same thing about folks on the right. They have everything. They're fucking miserable. Yeah, everybody's miserable because we live in hell. That's why. But it is a manufactured hell. It is 100% a manufactured hell. And I am really interested in shifting the culture on the left so that we do have the sense of humor that kept me alive. But I do want to be clear, right before we jump into the last clip, it's not the entire left. And I actually mean it's literally just white, queer, and trans people. Truly the most miserable, sad lot I've ever come across in my life. But that's only when they hang out with each other. It's just bad company. You gotta change it up a little. You gotta change it up a little, and you have to constantly, and this is true just for people in general, you have to constantly put yourself out in situations where you're exposed to different peoples and different worldviews. I do think that's changed. And I think the idea that anyone should buy into your worldview will make it more compelling. But again, moot point. This is partly why this shit drives me crazy. Let's move on. Let's move on. What else they got?
I'm Anne.
Hi, Anne.
You're Piers.
I am Piers.
I do want to kind of touch on the last thing that you and Mason talked about. I think the idea that the woke left is just this soulless, joyless majority of the left, at least now is what you seem to be making it out to
I
be.
don't think it's the majority. It's the noisy part of the left.
Okay. I actually think I can agree with you there. I think it's a loud minority of what you're calling the woke left. I think what really wokeness comes back to is that idea of fighting for equality, speaking up for people who don't have a voice themselves, and advocating on their behalf for their rights. And I think that you don't.
Do you identify as a woman?
No, but I think that's tangential.
What do you identify as?
That's tangential to this conversation.
No, it's actually very relevant to what I'm about to say.
No, I don't think my identity is relevant.
What do you identify
What if I started bringing up the fact that you're British and you're here talking to a bunch of Americans in America?
Great.
That
Hold on. Actually, keep going.
Really irrelevant to this whole point.
Very relevant.
We're talking about American
In fact, the last guy to
politics
sit
now.
at this desk used British as a slur against me. So
We'll pause here. I mean, the slur thing was just kind of funny because it's just like, don't be a baby, Piers. You're grown. I'm sorry. I just imagine Piers as a baby. He looks exactly the same. You know what I mean? Except he's like reading Charles Dickens. I don't know what's wrong with me. Okay, listen. It does matter. Like, he's not wrong. It does. Like, it does matter. I get it. She was like, I'm not going to walk into a trap. It shouldn't be a trap. Like, part of the issue is, and I care more about what we think on the left versus over there. Even if those of us who are dark woke, we're ideologically left, but we're not part of the orthodoxy. Or you can look at it inverse, but I'm using it based on Chimamand's term. But basically, it's like, I buy into a lot, and I'm still a person at the end of the day. Just fucking say it does matter how you identify. If we're still at the point where it's okay if we only share it with each other and it's something meaningful between us only, but then we actually can't in the outside world lest it be a trap. We're losing the recipes. I know these are just like a random subset of folks, but I just want to be clear. It makes us look weak. so much of debate and winning debate is in optics. So you refusing to engage in a thought experiment comes across as like very, very. Let me go on.
Absolutely fine. But I've risen
Might have been
above-
justified.
I haven't run to my therapist. I've risen above the
No,
slur.
that's great.
I'm
I'm
not
glad
going to
you
report him
seem
to.
very mentally
I'm not going to
fortified,
report
sure.
him to the authorities for using a racial slur. I've moved on.
That's
God.
good. I
My
just don't think
point in
that's
asking you
valid.
what you identify is that you're talking about equality. The wokeism is aligned to equality. And yet, where does that equality apply if, for example, and we've touched on this already, if you are a woman athlete in sport, where's the equality in having a biological
Let's pause
sex?
right here, right? One, terrifying. Listening to Piers tell jokes. I'm going to need to talk to my therapist about that. But two, you saw this coming a mile away, didn't you? You saw it coming a mile away. Good. Pay attention. This is where we always lost, right? In the whole sports thing. In 2025, if we still don't have something to say about that, we're in trouble, right?
Compete against you when they have a physical advantage.
Okay, look, I think, well, that kind of strays away from
Do you
what
think
I was
that's
getting
equal?
at. Do I think it's equal for men and women to play in sports if there's an advantage that's like far above a threshold?
Yes.
No, I don't think that
And you
that's
understand
equal.
that's why we
But I think
separate the
that-
sexes in sport, because men have a physical advantage.
Pause right there again. Why can't we say, yes, there are differences? There are fucking differences. The reason why bitches keep getting left behind in terms of medicine, medication, medical intervention is because they're bitches. We keep trying to. We compare women's physiology, women's physicality, women's health, women's bodies to men, and that's partly why it doesn't make fucking sense. We're not acknowledging. Okay, we talked about this. Why there are more meniscus tears and more injuries for women athletes over the past several years. You want to know why? Competition has gotten so fucking good. But the second reason is the lesser known one, which is you can go look this up. From a sports medicine perspective, every time that a woman or girl athlete is competing, is going through a cycle, right? A period. There's more collagen being released. That collagen softens cartilage and everything. It makes things spongier. It makes things more likely to break and tear. We don't know that in any meaningful way because we don't care about women. We are not advancing things, right? By suggesting that there's no difference. Because when there's no difference, guess who loses the most, right? Women's rights fold in trans rights. Trans rights don't fold in women's rights. And because we can't simply say that there's a difference and just literally lead the charge on that. We actually are incapable of engaging meaningfully in conversation about this. Like, I have been punched in the face by a woman. I've been punched in the face by a man. I've been punched in the face. Oh, but because I'm a boxer, not because I'm annoying. I've gotten into fights for other reasons. Let me just be clear. I've been punched in the face by a woman. I've been punched in the face by a man. I've been punched in the face by a man not on testosterone. So trans men not on T. I've been punched in the face by a trans man on testosterone. Those things make a difference. I've been a puncher. I've been a boxer on testosterone. I've been a boxer off of testosterone. The difference in my endurance, right? The difference in my punch power, in aggression, those things change as much as I want them to. Because yes, there's some buying into, right? That has to happen. But if we can't just say that, what we have to say that there is a difference, and then we have to figure out what that line is. But maybe we get let's go on.
Answer the question about archery. What do you think about archery? Do you think that has to be a segregated
I've
sport?
read a report, and correct me, someone I'm sure will correct me on the internet. I read a report that if it was a gender-neutral Olympics, women may end up with 2 bronze medals in the entire Olympics.
Wait. Okay,
right?
but I think the point. Hold on. Wait.
Two medals
I think the
in the
point.
entire.
There's a point here that's being made. I can't read it fully because there's my face is in the way. I can't move it. Oh, here we go. There's a fact check here. Piers is referring to the gender gap in events like swimming, track, and weightlifting. A 2010 study found the gap between male and athletes to be 10.7% running, 17.5 for jumps, 8.9 for swimming, 7% for speed skating. I think we could just skip that one. Speed skating, and then whatever. What, almost 8.7 for cycling. Okay, like first of all, who goes through more cycles than a smart woman in this world? Okay, sorry. I just wanted to make that assertion here, but go on.
Words, it would be the
Look,
destruction.
I'm not advocating for
No, I'm just saying it would be
completely gender-neutral
the
sports.
destruction of women's sport. That's why we separate the sexes, and that's why the issue matters.
She's getting up here. What is that? The end of that clip? Let me tell you something. This is what bothered me. Okay, he made his point. What was being contested in that? She was so clear. I'm not contesting this point. This is the problem when we don't have smarty arties and we have places like this that are clipping and cutting things and the whatever flag bullshit that people use and surrounded. I literally can't stand this shit. At the same time, I know a lot of people are being educated through it. So we gotta be where the people are. We gotta make the culture. We gotta be in the culture. And unfortunately, I'm just good at the internet. Thank you, Corey, for being like, bitch, it's time. Okay, but let me cook for a second. Okay, what point did she make? She didn't get to make a point. What point did he make? A point that wasn't being contested, right? And she said it. So I'm glad that she said it, actually, because it's important to say, I'm not suggesting this. That pushes back against the notion of hysteria. But I want to be really clear. There's one rule, and there's only the one rule that matters more than any other rule in any media training is say what you want to say. Right? Say what you want to say. I need us as people to have a greater sense of responsibility for what we do and say when we're in these spaces, because there's so few of us that get to be on any platform. This is my call to action, my plea that will mainly be heard by you all who already know this. Don't go on if you aren't going to be fucking fire. Like don't concede and fight. Go in and practice what the fuck you want to say. Otherwise, why go on? Is it just me that's just like, why am I going to do something unless I'm going to fucking smash it? Kill it. Crush it. I appreciate the pushback, but he made a point that isn't being contested. But you see how this works, though? The premise is woke is anti-liberal and fascist, right? And then what woke means, but now he's asserting a point that doesn't make sense. But you can take these kinds of creative liberties because all he said is the word woke, right? And so this is what woke people believe, isn't it? But it's not. It's actually not. We got to keep moving because I could talk about this for a minute, but I'm going to get into too many abstractions and we got too much ground to cover, babies. I told Corey go in any order, so this is on me. So I want you to imagine, though, that the gender thing is happening after this one because then the rest of the clips will just be gender. And I want to be clear, though. She followed Mason immediately. But this person, I like how this person pushes back. I'm going to deconstruct again, though, the tools on debate that matter here and opportunities, what should be said. It's like we're watching a sport.
Actually, my real point is, if you want to brand everybody fascist, you can't behave like fascists yourself.
But the key difference is fascism uses the power of the state to impose their
so
opinions.
does the woke left.
Wokeism does not.
Oh, it does.
Woke during the Biden administration.
Here's my answer.
Does anybody get rounded up in the streets for their opinion? Did anybody get canceled because the FCC said you're being too woke? No, that doesn't happen.
Can I answer?
Of course.
Of course. Actually, the woke left have deployed the power of the state many times. Look at the pandemic.
How is that wokeism?
I'll tell you how it's
wokeism.
Wait,
so diseases are woke now?
No, wokeism is where you take things which are not actually science-based, for example, the efficacy of masks, right? And by the way, I feel guilty of this myself. I'm not saying I'm whiter than white about this.
So masks are woke?
No, they can be. If the woke mentality, I'll explain why. When a government says that if you're seen without a mask during a pandemic, you can be fined or punished.
Piers, you're way too smart to believe this.
Wait a minute. I'm giving you an argument which I ended up accepting, right? Which is in a fast-moving pandemic, when the scientific advice changes so rapidly, I fell victim to this myself. I was very censorious of people. But you can't deny that the state had a mindset of you will conform or we will punish you. And it turned out they were making
That's
people...
simply not true.
It is true.
You may have felt uncomfortable being unmasked in public because people would say, hey, be courteous of other people.
I didn't.
Nobody got fired.
I didn't.
Nobody lost their job. Nobody
Actually,
got
did get
exiled.
fired.
Let's pause for a second here. So, I like this boy. He came in with his little hair. He's got a suit on. He gets it, right? He gets it. Do you see? Okay, so what I found fascinating is I know, and we all know what the fuck woke means from an American perspective, with these like losers online who are constantly obsessed with what we think, what we do, how we dress, because they're not generating any culture of their own while complaining that Western culture is dying. What the fuck is Piers talking about? Like, I really loved my little suited and booted YN here saying science is woke. I don't know what the fuck Piers is talking about. This is what happens when you just, it's like if I threw a bunch of random people in a room, right, and some meth, a couple tennis balls, and some people did the meth, some people only did the tennis balls, some people did the tennis balls, some people did the meth, and then you're like, what was your collective experience? That says that, you see how that makes no sense? That's what this is like. It makes no fucking sense. What fucking definition is Piers Morgan talking about at all? Woke is the government. Woke is systemic power. So the pushback against that is peak. I think the comedy is good. I'm waiting for Piers to make his argument, and he's not doing a great job.
People did get fired. They all lost their jobs for not wearing a mask. They were told they couldn't come to work.
Who?
Thousands of people.
Okay, so these nebulous people lost their job.
Nick, to be clear, you don't think anybody lost their job in the pandemic for refusing to wear a mask?
So I want to pause this actually one last time. This whole thing could have been ended right here. I forgot I'm supposed to be, you catch them. So Piers, I want to get this right. Bring up some bullshit with the bubonic plague. Like, it is absurd. Use their own arguments against them, right? People were angry, and actually, I'm not talking about fringe people. I mean, people were furious about seatbelts. I mean, protested seatbelts. It was an infringement on their personal freedoms. When we're talking about safety, you know what I would ask? I'm like, so you do not care about, are you saying you don't care about American lives? Right? You talk about the fact that science is constantly evolving. You ask about whether or not he values expertise. I appreciate the arguments, but the core issue, the only flaw that is worth mentioning is you can't argue something by accepting the premises that somebody else has asserted, because then you have to work within their reality. You see how he's like, so you're saying nobody got fired. Reject the reality. Right? He said it's not true. What ends up happening in these, and you'll see it happen again and again, is somebody asserts something and then we have to take on the role of disproving it. And we do that by saying, well, what about, so you're saying this doesn't, so you're saying this. Actually make them prove their case, right? Immediately, by challenging it with a question that can be visualized, but still within the realm of your reality. Again, so I'm sorry, wait, you didn't care that people died because of COVID? Immediately, right? COVID was at, whoa, are you saying you didn't? And he goes, no, what are you talking about? Of course I cared. I'm saying this and that, but this was about saving lives. You see how now he's forced to contend with my reality? I just have to go back to my reality. Yes, but this was, and then you use real scenarios to help bolster that argument again. So that's when you go to the seatbelts, right? That's when you go to cigarette warnings. To conflate, I really liked his line of questioning. I thought that was smart. But if we accept the premise or the reality as factual or as something worth living in, we have people constantly better when we pull them. If I had started this and said, Piers, you don't care about. Of course, I care about safety. I'm saying this and that. And da, da, da. Yes, but the whole point of this was saving lives. So that's what I'm trying to get at. I'm pro saving people's lives. They don't need to die needlessly. So, okay, wait. I just want to make sure I understand you, Piers. You're okay if some people. You're okay if some people die. Actually, no, wait, Piers. I want to be clear. You're okay if hundreds of thousands of people die, so a small handful of people don't feel oppressed. Constantly bring them in. Constantly make them contend with reality, with the actual reality, with what matters most. Keep going.
Vaccinated.
I think that people who are in public-facing situations where they could have easily taken a scientifically proven preemptive measure.
It wasn't proven.
Yes, it was.
No, it turned out not to be proven. That's my point. And yet the state, driven by a left-wing Democrat president.
So me telling you that you are spreading misinformation, that is not fascism. That is just me telling you you're wrong.
No, but you're not telling me I'm wrong because I'm right.
Okay, no, you're just not. And we're not going to relitigate COVID. That's now years ago at this point. The key point is it fascism? It is not fascism. You gave your very long definition of liberalism. Wokeism is about everything on that list that you described as being liberal. Really? It's about standing up for other perspectives.
You think
it's about listening to other people that have not traditionally been listened to.
Oh, you don't listen to anybody.
Yes,
what are you talking about? Of course you don't.
You said yourself, wokeism started about just acknowledging social problems. I think it's woke that
originally
middle America's jobs have been shipped overseas. That's woke to recognize that there's larger social problems.
I don't disagree.
Police brutality, recognizing that there's a problem with the institution of policing. That's woke. It's not fascist.
Would you defund the police?
No, absolutely not.
Okay, well, that's woke.
Not defunding the police is woke?
Calling for the police to be defunded.
So pause. Okay, so he goes, absolutely not, right? That was a panic response, right? He was actually cooking so hard, and it's okay. It actually might be that his politics deviate. But again, right, you use this as an opportunity to make your case and your point. What's the opportunity here? Whoa. But I want to be clear. Defund wasn't about getting rid of the cops. So you don't believe in arts programs? You don't. Whoa, hold on, Piers. Crime rates are going down everywhere across America. For the most part, right? And they are. I want to be clear, in like major cities. Why would we keep funding a problem that is less when we know that social infrastructure is stretched? Are you saying that a poor kid shouldn't go to art school so that some bloated police budget can have a little bit more? Don't concede on the points that actually, you know what do I want to say? Sorry, I'm just going to turn it down because I keep hearing myself. It's throwing me off. We absolutely should never squander an opportunity to make a case for something that might make somebody think about things differently, right? So what we're seeing with Piers and why this honestly is so much brain rot. I really like how this guy's responding to things. Is that you're seeing a haphazard, incoherent assortment of random assertions that makes up essentially conservative brain on what woke is or what leftism is. It's very silly, and it should sound and look as silly as it is. That if it feels like it's grasping at straws, it's because it is. But the thing that we shouldn't throw away is that these are the straws that most people have made their houses from. Do you like how I pulled in the three little pigs thing? And that's just it. People are making houses out of them, and that's become the norm. Our job is to blow these motherfuckers out. Continue.
Including Mamdani in New
this
York.
is like
the new mayor of New York City called for the...
Your first prompt was toxic
NYPD
masculinity has always meant one thing. Now you're saying woke used to mean one thing, but now it means a different thing. So words only have one definition when they suit you.
No.
But when they don't suit you, they change and
obviously,
they can fluctuate.
Obviously, you said that wokeism is a form of liberalism, right? You said that.
Yes.
Everything I read.
Wokeism is a form of liberalism.
And just to remind
Absolutely.
you, a person who is willing to respect or accept behavior or opinions different from one's own. The woke left famously, I would say infamously, never accept anybody objecting to anything they say.
We
You
confront
as a
bad
collective-
speech with better speech.
You confront bad speech with better
Yes.
speech. No, you don't.
Like denying the
What?
efficacy of vaccines, and I'm telling you that's wrong.
No,
I'm not saying you should be canceled.
Actually,
Oh,
You should be in prison for that.
Actually, if you want my honest view, I do not think the efficacy of masks was ever proven. In fact, I think most of the evidence now suggests they were pretty pointless. Secondly, on vaccines, I think they saved millions of lives, but I do think it was completely misleading of the government here and the government in the UK and other countries when they stated as a scientific fact that if you had the vaccine, you couldn't transmit the virus.
The measure was whether the healthcare system would be overwhelmed.
Wait a minute.
The healthcare system
I
did
know,
not collapse at
I know.
worst. That was all it was
I'm
supposed to
making the
be.
point.
It wasn't that no one would ever get sick
I'm making
ever.
the point that when you issue government mandates and it turns out you were wrong, for example, when they said you cannot transmit the virus if you have the vaccine, it turned out that wasn't true. Do you accept?
you know, again, it goes back to science. The science was evolving in real time. Do you want to know what a different way of looking at COVID is? It's actually the more accurate one. It is one of the largest. COVID and the medical world's response to COVID, humanity's response to COVID worldwide, is one of the greatest examples of human collaboration I've ever witnessed in my lifetime. It might be the greatest one I will ever witness in my lifetime. The reason why we got the vaccine so quickly for COVID is because all the red tape that's typically out there, not because we don't need health interventions or advancements, or not because we don't need more vaccines or medications. I mean, we've got thousands of illnesses that we have no way to treat, right? We've also made major interventions. We've got like 4,000 medications that could be chosen from at any point because we've made major advances. The only reason why we don't get the advances we deserve is because there's not a financial incentive to do it. So the red tape isn't from lack of researchers or lack of science or lack of data. It's simply not capitalist. It's simply not, there's not enough of a profit motive, which is why so much work that happens really in what would be considered the left is underfunded and understudied. We saw human collaboration. That profit model was not the most important thing because we were facing what at the time felt like an extinction level threat. It was still full of all the, the injustices, poor people get the Johnson's one. And we were like, it was full of all the bullshit. And, the racism, whose fault was it? This dirty place, whatever, even though there's so much more advanced. The one thing I'll say that I was thinking about is I do think a lot of our social woes stem from the isolation, the price inflations, shrinkflation, the algos sands us, polarizing us more without having to go and confront real life and real people. All of these things in a way are, because I was like, why are we even talking about this in conjunction with wokeism? But I do think it was a radicalizing point for so many folks, right? And then also you had the whole Black Lives Matter thing that popped off in 2020. So a lot of racist, bigots, nationalists felt some kind of way about that. That being said, COVID to this day is one of the best examples of human collaboration and possibility that we have, how we responded to it, how science was operating in real time, the respect that we had for essential workers. I know it wasn't all real, not real enough, but there was a moment for doctors and nurses who were frontline folks, who were teachers, who were struggling to educate their students online to get them to focus and study on the worst possible place, in the hardest way imaginable. And there was, lastly, this thing that we were all experiencing together. It's partly why so many folks were discovered, thoughts, opinions, points of views. For a lot of online people, I'll include myself, that time, for as unbelievably impossible and difficult it was also one of the best times of my life, because it wasn't mainstream media that was dictating so much of what happened. It was us. It's just that it's not just us in a bubble. And I don't mean us as in you and I and all other leftists. I mean humanity, society. But it's not us. It's us shaped by the imagination and profit incentive of a small handful of billionaires, right? So this dark worldview, you want to talk about joyless? And to be so grown, a big ass man, and not understand that the science was evolving in real time because it was a real time moment. I'm like, do you even understand what the word pandemic means? So ultimately, I think this was the best argued case. We'll move on to a couple of the others. I really like my boy here. We'll move into the gender stuff, but part of this setup here is so fucking willy nilly. Like, I don't like the surrounded kind of stuff, but I don't want to miss out on the opportunities to weigh in and throw some punches whenever possible. But I think my telling of COVID is much better. It fascinates me that that's what oppression feels like to so many people, right? Like being told to wear a mask was oppressive. And that's when I was like, hey, y'all, go, 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 go. Now, are there people who have taken it too fucking far? Yeah, all the time. Who you choose to pay attention to affirm your worldview is very much an indication of you as a person. So this Parker guy, I don't know him at all, but he's apparently there's a couple of folks that are just like these like liberal, yappers online. Again, some can be useful, blah 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 blah. I don't know them at all. This Parker, this little white boy. I only know people who really be doing that, the one that do. But I just wanted to point it out in case context reference. Anytime there's somebody I have some context for, it's always great because on Jubilee, you don't. But this person is, on TikTok and hopefully doesn't get fucking dog walked with Piers Morgan and Tylis Piers Morgan. Let's hit it.
How are you?
Good to see you.
Okay.
Parker,
Parker, I'm Piers.
I've been on your show, bro.
Yes, I thought I recognized you. Everything's
You know,
a calamity. Everything's a problem. Has to be overanalyzed,
No one said
over-dissected, over-therapized. And I just think you've all got to be given the mental tools to deal with ordinary life. Ordinary life.
we already have them.
Ordinary
I
life.
actually have
Let
gone
me
to
tell you.
therapy to do that.
Ordinary
Have
life.
you?
Yeah, but without going to therapy all the time.
Wait, what's your solution? What's your solution?
People, I think at school and colleges, we need to reinforce, this comes back to masculinity with men. We need to reinforce the mental tools required for life.
Such as?
Well, I can tell you when I can chart the absolute descent of this in the wrong way. And I think it began in America, when you started giving kids participation prizes for coming last. Absolute shambles. I mean, who ever thought of that?
How does this have to do with actually like men making their emotions?
Okay, Parker? With your little swoop.
Are conditioned to think that if you come last at something, you get a prize. It is the worst possible preparation for the real world.
So what's the actual
Because
solution?
Parker,
You're just telling a
Parker,
problem again.
do you
Problem. What's the solution?
Parker, if I could finish my sentence.
Start with the
The
solution.
solution is you to stop talking for a moment, right?
How about you actually provide
Right.
a solution? All you've done is
Parker,
bring about problems.
Parker, I've just given you a solution. I want
That's
more.
not a solution. That's a
Yes,
problem.
I'm going to pause right here. Now, I don't need to say much with this. This is weak. I'm not suggesting that there's any validity to the anecdotal fallacy that Piers Morgan just said, right? Like, it's an absolute anecdotal fallacy to say it's participation trophies, right? Like, that's why. I will say, and then he brought it to men and he goes, masculinity with men, which is great. So, like, first, it's so incoherent. What's actually being said? Piers Morgan is making an argument that, essentially all the mental health stuff, all this, like, we've made weak people, and this is especially true in men and young men. And one of the ways is through these participation trophies, right? So many missed opportunities, Parker. But this is for us, right? This is for us. One, right? So wait, are you saying so men have been coddled? Boom, you got him, right? If he says yes, great, you can move fluidly, right? But if he says no, then you say, but you just made that argument. That's if you want to be peevish, right? But also you're poking holes in his argument by he's using a lot of weird online brain rot that's loosely pulled together to like make a case that's based in anecdote and logical fallacies, which I'm learning is hugely used with boy yappers. The dumb girl ones too, but I've been paying attention to like speech patterns in the manosphere. A lot of logical fallacies. I think that's just a thing that people do, right? It's like I'm gonna pull two unlike things at all, isolated from context and any like, and then I'm going to make a case from it. It would literally be if I could pull 20 clips from 20 different shows and then use those clips and be like, see, because so and so said this, da, da, da. And then I'm like, I made my case. I made my art. That's not what an argument is. You don't make that with a bunch of unlike things that are cherry picked. Your shit makes sense. But what I'm annoyed by is like, you're presenting the problem with the solutions. I think this is a setup anyway, the whole thing, right? 20 people, some sort of weird flag situation, and then you've got like 2 minutes. You miss an opportunity to make your point. This is not to Parker in like a you're bad, but just to think through, right? Like we're going through how to actually debate. So you have the peevish way, which I wouldn't even call peevish, it's just strategy, but it's like some men have been coddled. That's a bit fun, right? You can have fun with that one. He's either going to walk it back or agree with you, and then you can move into more where you start out with like more understanding, and participation trophies, and this is why we're all weak and stuff, and you can. I would argue, I actually could disagree with you more. I'd say that men are being more oppressed economically, and that's why. And then now I'm making an argument, right? I'm making a more substantial argument than Piers Morgan. He just brought up something very unpopular, especially online on right culture, right? Uh, it is very popular on right that there has to be some sort of external antagonist. My job, as I see it, is to drive that to always the economy and the concentration of power. The right is trying to convince itself always that it's because of immigrants and women and other people. So I'm not sure, but you know what? Maybe for cooks, let's keep going.
You condition kids to deal with the real world when they become adults.
Otherwise, when they men not having the ability to express their emotions in a positive way is literally participation trophy for not being there.
Advantage is so annoying. Look,
have you been on your own show? You interrupted me the whole time, and now you're just getting the same thing.
I don't know why he went on this if he's just gonna do this. Pause. Weak. Oh, you mad? This is sorry. This is just internet brain rot. Oh, are you mad? What are we? That's what we're doing? Let me tell you something. There are times and places to drop that. But that's when to me, I'll tell you the truth, you've already lost. If this is what you have to pull from, you have already lost. It's moving too fast and you're too far gone, or the person is, for you to actually keep up. Like mockery is a sign of weakness. And you can do what's the word when you can take a couple of jabs. But mockery, you don't have anything. Are you mad? He doesn't even sound mad. He's like he sounds exasperated, which I'm like, babe, you're a blowhard. You're not exasperated. Take it easy. Take it easy. But Piers is doing the same thing, right? You just keep talking over me. Neither of them actually know what to say because the setup is stupid. And so are a lot of the arguments. But go on.
Okay.
Parker. Come on, calm down. You're shaking.
I'm totally calm.
Parker.
I'm not shaking at all. I'm not shaking. Why do you have to act like why do you have to say something delusional to try to deflect away from the fact that you haven't addressed anything meaningful here?
Christ, Parker.
Oh no. Stop it. Yep, laughed. He's done. He's done. Yeah, like, you can't say that somebody has done something that you also haven't done. You haven't substantially, I get it. approaches are different. Let's just say that mine is effective. I don't know what that is. Let's move on to the next one.
Because young men feel sort of worthless, they feel disenfranchised by society, they're not sure where to go. Many of them lack father figures. There's chest-beating Andrew Tate saying, keep fit, don't abuse yourself too much.
Just women.
Well, I'm going to come to that. And so he says all these things, which men go, oh, yeah, that's good. And aspire to be great, aspire to be successful, do this, work hard, and all this. And then you get to his blatant misogyny, right? He is a terrible misogynist. He thinks that women should be left at home, never allowed to vote,
I know who he is,
never allowed to work. I know, but my point is, I agree with you. Trait of his, right? I think it's horrible, but that's not toxic masculinity.
But
that is actually misogyny. There's a word for it.
I guess the reason.
Pause. No. You have heard me say this. You've heard me say this. You've heard me say that. I cannot stand the term toxic masculinity. It uses the same kind of logic, by the way, right? Indulge my too woke moment because I love it as a joke. Toxic masculinity is so funny when it's put on display, but that's all it should be used for. He's 100% right. When you vilify half the fucking population by asserting that masculinity is inherently oppressive or violent, a la Me Too, you're going to have massive blowback because it's just not true. It's simply not true, but it's also not useful or effective. Why would we use something that single story is a systemic issue? That's what toxic masculinity does. Why would you use a reduced version to describe a set of systemic? But that's the thing. We're identity and individual, like there's an obsession with the individual that BuzzFeed helped to create. That's how we think now. We do not think it's how I feel about this thing, and therefore that's true. No, again, I love toxic masculinity as a good joke. I think it can be useful when you're describing an individual's behavior, again, mostly in jest because it's stupid. But yeah, it's patriarchy and misogyny. Every time that we say toxic masculinity, we are suggesting that masculinity is inherently oppressive, but we're missing an opportunity to describe the systemic realities, which is why we're losing the sauce, babies. We're losing the sauce because we actually don't have any sense of power anymore, right? It's just vibes, babes. Our power analysis is just vibes? I don't fucking think so. He's 100% right. Carry on.
Fueled by people like Andrew Tate, because like you said, toxic masculinity, we've never spoke about this before, but I think the reason it's on the table now is because of men like Andrew Tate. It's not because of women calling men
so call
toxic.
It what it is.
It's literally because red pill podcasters, especially during the pandemic, if you were already a loner, you became even more alone, so they needed a community. So everyone's living life online in these, what they thought was a community, because all these men did was validate their feelings that they already had about themselves. It was an echo chamber, and they have to keep them sad and angry, tell them to place the blame on women and minorities so that they get their pockets filled.
Yeah, so that's 100% correct. So, but again, right, what's your argument? I actually think that was a really strong finish. And what I want you to recognize from that, and I'll be super succinct here because there's too many thoughts on it, but I'll just say this. Imagine how much more effective it would have been if she hadn't used the term toxic masculinity, right? Piers Morgan makes a premise. I like the approach because it isn't a rejection of the premise. I think it's silly to. Okay, great. I think it's silly to try to. What do I want to say here? It is always useful, again, and essential to demonstrate comprehension on what somebody else is arguing. And once you do that enough, it's actually called active listening, right? I haven't heard that term in a long time, actually, because of course, obsession with self is going to lend to less and less, listening. But also we have felt like we haven't needed to demonstrate comprehension of other people's thoughts and ideas because it's really about what I think and I want to get there. What I like is he makes a premise and the premise is true, but the aperture is it's just not wide enough. And so this was the two of them, this was a more coherent clip, which is why it was pulled. The rest, and those were the best clips. Like, this is not scary. You miss the point though when what do I want to say? Okay, I got it. I'm working this out in real time with you. The toxic masculinity, you're saying that men have shitty feelings and they are being blamed for they're getting their shitty feelings affirmed and being told to blame that on women. That is 100% true. So then who's your target audience, right? Who's your target audience? Why do men feel shitty, right? That's number one. Widen the aperture, everybody's feeling shitty. But again, toxic masculinity, we have got to start understanding that our language is a huge reason for why there was such a move against woke culture. And when I say woke culture, obviously, like, there's racism, there's this, there's that. But like, I think, like, it's supposed to be cool. This is why you need black people leading the shit. I'm going to tell you right now, because we don't just tell you to wash your legs, okay? We don't just say, bitch, you got to wash your legs. We bring a certain culture, a certain set of like anti-WASP interaction, right? Like, that's just what it is. I'm not just talking about black folks. It's everybody. It's why we need access to different types of people, okay? Our language, if my job is I communicate things, right? That's my job. Why did I pick up this pen when I have a mic in front of my mouth? Okay. I was using it as a fake mic. My job is to communicate ideas. Am I stupid? Am I not stupid, rather, if the language I'm using is not effective and not having the desired result? Should I, A, keep saying exactly the same thing in exactly the same way, or evolve the language, right? In our case, we're actually doing the opposite. We're devolving language because we are moving into illiteracy and out of expertise, right? Which is partly why we feel nuts. We're coughing when we don't need to cough. This is something very easy. Like we all feel like shit, right? Like, this is something really easy. And I do think that there are certain people who are socialized to believe that your feelings are somebody else's problem. Your feelings are because of somebody else, right? Because if you've never really had an interior dialogue because you were precluded from having that, that's what you're going to do. And then you got grifters that are capitalizing on that. Again, this whole conversation was batshit bananas. This is not a debate. It is a random hodgepodge of like pulled one-liners from the internet that is being presented as some sort of belief system. We shouldn't take note because that incoherence provides a lot of space for us to define it. I love being fucking woke. It's why I decided not to give them that term. But it was a joke that black people were fucking saying by ourselves, and then you guys took it and got weird. Like, you got so fucking weird. Like, it's just, don't be taking the stuff if you don't know how to cook. You don't got the recipes, babe. You know what I realized? That this went on for so long that I actually, okay, we're going to do the Tucker Carlson thing tomorrow. It's going to be good. I yapped too much in the beginning, but I do think it was important because I haven't been connecting emotionally enough, but it's because I've been in turmoil. I haven't had emotions that are new. I had old emotions. But this is the thing. This is, that thing where you're like trying to figure out why you don't feel great and then you got to take some ownership. That's exactly what's happening. Just a lot of coughing on the left, a lot of COVID, if you will, a lot of coughing on the left. Actually, I actually meant to say the right. Well, there you go. There is some coughing on the left, but the biggest coughs are on the right because they actually have the best means of conveyance when it comes to information sharing. There were some good points that were made in that. I do think, though, that the incoherence allows whatever ideas you came into this thing with. What I don't like about Jubilee in general is that it's so incoherent that you can only leave believing the same things. Like, you're going to see it through the lens that you desperately want to because it affirms your worldview. I am adjusting to this as our work because I want to reach through a screen and just strangle babies, but I can't because it's not the good work. But I will say I do enjoy it. I sometimes wish it was more substantive, and that's partly why we're doing this comparison because you got a sense. You got Piers Morgan saying this is the problem is wokeism, right? Wokeism is anti-liberal and fascist. Piers Morgan would describe himself as a liberal in some sense, like a conservative liberal, a common sense guy. But it's interesting because what you're hearing is someone who believes that misogyny exists, right? He's like, misogyny exists. He believes in a sense of fairness. He has more nuance than any other person that would consider themselves. And he's one of the most conservative pundits in England, certainly one of the most well-known, had views that are considered anti-trans. He was weird about the whole Meghan Markle thing. So I want you to get that there's a person in there on some level. I watched in real time Piers Morgan change his mind regarding Israel's treatment of Palestinians. This is significant. It's always coalitions in terms of what relationships are worth pursuing. I also want you to hear, though, that even a logical, more intelligent version still relies on anecdotal and logical fallacies to describe what we are. I see that as an immense opportunity for us to actually push our definitions of things more ardently and more cohesively. I don't know that I can get on a call with Parker because I really don't fucking want to, but maybe together we champion this and we get it loud enough so that we get to talk to the people we actually want to. But it's going to be fascinating. I don't want you to miss tomorrow's episode. It's going to be fucking fascinating. I want you to take this version of Piers, right? That to us still feels a little bit batshit for all the restraint because, unpack it enough. And there's some points were made. If you go ahead and watch it, some points were made, not ones that we haven't made ourselves. But when you put that against America's Piers Morgan, which is Tucker Carlson, and we compare the two, that's when, because I really want us to understand how fucking right we are. Like we could win this shit so easily. We get to define and decide what the fuck the left is now because they clearly don't know. And the truth is, low-key, we don't either. But when you look at woke objectively, what does it mean? When people describe it, when Grok describes it, when fucking Google describes it, it's like, yay, yeah. Fairness. Equity. Diversity of thought. Diversity at the table. Yeah, those are good fucking things. Those are social justice. These are objectively good things that we don't take pride in defending to the extent that we should. But a big part of it is you say something and you're going to get your ass beat by someone with pink fucking hair and no nipples, right? But not literally, and that's the thing. We can beat ass. Like we could actually we need to start punching people in the necks when they're talking shit. Not literally, you guys. You have to figure your hormones out before you fight somebody for fairness. I will detransition when called upon to beat somebody's ass. I'll up my testosterone to beat up another person's. I will detransition to fight Jordan Peterson, though, because I don't think it's fair for me to have normal amounts of testosterone. You know what? I can yap on and on and on, but I'm looking at the time. I actually want to keep going because I'm really excited about tomorrow. But having a little bit of pacing might be good. I try to watch these in real time with you as much as I can because I trust that. But it also means I'm processing out loud and we're doing it together. But I'm just gonna say, I fucking hated that. I fucking hated that. But it's good to know what other people think and how other people talk and define things because it gives us an opportunity to refine. And the hysteria of tomorrow combined with the histrionics of today, what more could we ask for? Stop coughing my babies. Drink some fucking water. I was so ashy today. I don't know who all out there got my little voodoo doll, put some lotion on it, put some Vaseline on the lips. For the love of God, like, take care, have a heart. I love you all very much. I can't wait for tomorrow. Thank you to each and every one of you that listens to this show. And thank you to Corey for making us look good and sound good and helping me get my shit together. Thanks to my therapist, y'all. But one final time, like, thanks for sticking it through. I'm finally in the place where everything that I know that we can do, we actually can. I just had to do a lot of work to get here, and it's time to, like, buy into our new reality. Shit, we ain't got money for anything else anyway. Might as well. I love you all. I can't wait to talk to you soon. Love you.